I never thought owning a snow removal business in Buffalo, New York, would land me in small claims court. But here I am, staring down the HOA president who tried to scam me out of $4,000. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. My name is Walter Rutherford, and I have been running Rutherford Snow Services for 7 years now. Buffalo gets hammered with lake effect snow every winter and business is good. Really good. I have 3 trucks, 8 employees, and about 60 residential contracts across the northern suburbs. I pride myself on doing quality work at fair prices, showing up when I say I will, and treating my clients with respect. Most of them appreciate that. Most of them are not Brenda Morrison. Brenda is the 52-year-old HOA president of Lakeside Meadows, a planned community of about 200 homes near Amherst. She has that classic Karen haircut, the kind that defies gravity and looks like she asked the stylist for the speak to your manager special. She wears these oversized sweaters with holiday patterns year-round and drives a white Lexus SUV with vanity plates that read Hoqueen. I wish I was making that up. The whole mess started on a Monday morning in January. We had gotten slammed with 32 inches of snow over the weekend, one of those storms that shuts down the whole city. The Bills had to postpone their playoff game, schools were closed for 3 days, and the National Guard was helping dig out the elderly. It was brutal, even by Buffalo standards. I was out with my crews from 3 in the morning until well past dark, hitting all our contracted properties. By Monday afternoon, we were exhausted but nearly finished. I was driving through Lakeside Meadows, checking on the common areas we maintained for the HOA when my phone rang. I did not recognize the number, but it had a local area code, so I answered. Rutherford Snow Services, this is Walter. Yes, hello, this is Brenda Morrison from Lakeside Meadows HOA. I need you to come clear my personal walkway immediately. There is snow everywhere, and I cannot get to my mailbox. I pulled over to give her my full attention. Madam, we have completed all the common areas in Lakeside Meadows according to our contract. If you need personal property service, I can have someone swing by tomorrow morning. We are pretty backed up right now with this storm. Tomorrow morning is not acceptable. I am the HOA president, and I need this done today. Right now, actually. I took a deep breath. I understand the inconvenience, but all my crews are finishing up emergency calls. Like I said, I can get someone there first thing tomorrow, probably around 7 in the morning. Are you telling me no? Her voice had that sharp edge that every service worker recognizes, the tone that says a complaint is coming regardless of what you do. I am telling you that tomorrow morning is the earliest I can schedule a personal service call. If you would like to schedule that, I will need your address and we can discuss pricing. Pricing. Your company already has a contract with the HOA. You should be doing this as part of that contract. Now I was getting annoyed. Our contract covers the community entrances, the main roads, and the community center parking lot. Personal driveways and walkways are not included. That is a separate service. That is ridiculous. How much would you even charge for something like this? I did some quick mental math. Her address was in the back section of the development, and based on what I knew about those houses, probably looking at a 50-foot driveway and another 40 feet of walkway. With the amount of snow we had gotten, that was at least an hour and a half of work, maybe 2 hours with the cleanup. For that amount of snow and a property that size, probably around $250. She actually gasped. $250. That is highway robbery. These houses cost $500,000 and you want to charge me that much for a little snow removal. Madam, we have commercial-grade equipment, insurance, and trained staff. That is the standard rate for emergency service after a major storm. If you schedule regular seasonal service, the per-visit cost is lower, but for a one-time emergency call, that is what it costs. This is absolutely unacceptable. I will be contacting your supervisor. I am the owner, so you are talking to the supervisor. I am happy to schedule you for tomorrow morning at that rate, or you are welcome to call another company. Given how backed up everyone is right now, you might have trouble finding someone available. She hung up on me. I shrugged and went back to work, figuring that was the end of it. Some people cannot handle being told no, especially when they are used to pushing others around with their little bit of authority. Tuesday morning rolled around, and I was grabbing coffee at Tim Hortons when my phone rang again. Different number, still local. I answered it while waiting for my medium roast. Is this Walter Rutherford of Rutherford Snow Services speaking? This is Linda Chen from the Lakeside Meadows HOA Board. I am calling about a formal complaint filed by our president, Brenda Morrison. She claims you refused to provide contracted services yesterday. I stepped outside into the cold so I could hear better. That is not accurate. Our contract with Lakeside Meadows covers specific common areas, all of which were serviced according to the agreement. Mrs. Morrison called requesting personal service to her private property, which is not part of our HOA contract. I offered to schedule that as a separate service, and she declined. I see. Do you have documentation of what is covered under the contract? Absolutely. I can email you a copy right now if you provide your address. It is very clearly outlined in sections 3 and 4. Linda sighed. Please do. Between you and me, Brenda has a tendency to assume the HOA should cover her personal expenses. This is not the first issue like this we have dealt with. I want to make sure we have everything documented before the next board meeting. I sent her the contract from my phone right there in the parking lot. She called me back 10 minutes later to confirm she had received it and that everything looked in order. She apologized for the inconvenience and said she would address it with Brenda. I thanked her and figured, again, that this was done. I should have known better. Thursday afternoon, I was in my office doing payroll when my employee Marcus came in looking confused. He was one of my best drivers, been with me for 4 years, completely reliable. Boss, I just got the weirdest call from some lady named Brenda. She said she was with the Lakeside Meadows HOA and that she needed us to clear her property today as part of our contract. She was pretty insistent about it. I told her I would need to check with you, and she said you already knew about it and that you had authorized it. Said something about how you talked about it earlier this week. My stomach dropped. What did you tell her? I said I would confirm with you first. She got pretty upset and said she would call you directly. Did you authorize this? Absolutely not. We had this exact conversation on Monday. Her personal property is not part of the HOA contract, and she refused to pay for separate service. This is her trying to get free work by going around me. Right on cue, my phone rang. Brenda Morrison, the caller ID said. I had saved her number from Monday just in case something like this happened. I put it on speaker so Marcus could hear. Walter Rutherford. Yes, Walter, this is Brenda Morrison. I just spoke with one of your employees, Marcus I believe, about clearing my walkway and driveway. He seemed confused about the authorization, so I wanted to confirm with you directly that this is part of our HOA contract, and your team will be here within the hour. Mrs. Morrison, we already discussed this on Monday. Your personal property is not covered under the HOA contract. If you would like to hire us for personal service, that is a separate charge. Linda from the board said you sent her the contract. I reviewed it, and it says you are to provide snow removal services for Lakeside Meadows properties. My property is in Lakeside Meadows, therefore it is covered. I could not believe what I was hearing. The contract specifically lists the common areas covered: entrance roadways, the main loop road, and the community center parking lot. It does not cover individual homes. That has always been the understanding, and that is what we have been doing for the past 3 years. I interpret the contract differently, and as HOA president, my interpretation is what matters. Your crew needs to be here within the hour, or I will consider this a breach of contract and will be seeking legal remedy. Mrs. Morrison, if you believe there is a contract dispute, you are welcome to pursue that through proper channels. But I am not sending my crew to do free work based on your misinterpretation of a very clear contract. Free work. You are already being paid by the HOA. This would not be free work. We are paid to service the common areas. Your private property is not a common area. If you want us there, you pay us directly. That is how this works. We will see about that. She hung up. Marcus looked at me with wide eyes. That lady is something else. You have no idea. If she calls back, do not answer. Forward it to me. Same goes for anyone else on the crew. I do not want her trying to manipulate someone into going over there. Got it, boss. I called Linda Chen back and filled her in on what had just happened. She was mortified and promised to address it at the next board meeting. She also confirmed in writing via email that the HOA's understanding of the contract was the same as mine, and that Brenda's personal property was not included in the scope of services. Friday morning, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mr. Rutherford, this is Janet Kimball. I am Brenda Morrison's neighbor in Lakeside Meadows. I am calling because Brenda told me that your company cleared her walkway and driveway yesterday, and that you are refusing to bill the HOA for it as contracted. She said you are trying to charge her personally, and that she needs neighbors to provide statements about the work you did. I felt my face getting hot. Madam, we did not clear Brenda's walkway or driveway yesterday or any other day. We have only serviced the HOA common areas as contracted. If someone cleared her property, it was not my company. Oh, that is strange. She was very specific that it was your company. She even described one of your red trucks being there. Our trucks are red, that is true, but we were not at her property. We were on the other side of town yesterday. I have GPS logs for all our vehicles if needed. Janet was quiet for a moment. This is very awkward. Brenda has been going door to door saying that your company did work and is now trying to scam her with extra charges. She is trying to rally the neighborhood against you. Against me? I did not do anything. She has been trying to get free work for the past 5 days and I have been refusing. I believe you. Brenda has a history of exaggerating things when she does not get her way. I wanted to hear your side before I got involved in whatever this is. Thank you for clarifying. I thanked her for calling and sat there staring at my computer screen, trying to process what was happening. Brenda was apparently telling people we had done work that we had not done, then claiming we were trying to overcharge her for it. This was getting seriously weird. The following Monday, I received a certified letter. It was from Brenda Morrison, and it was typed on official Lakeside Meadows HOA letterhead. The letter stated that my company had performed unauthorized work on her property without her consent, specifically clearing her driveway and walkway on Thursday, January 19th. It stated that this work was done poorly, causing damage to her decorative stone borders and leaving salt stains on her concrete. The letter demanded that I pay her $1,000 for the damage caused by my negligent and unwanted services. I read it 3 times to make sure I was understanding correctly. She was now claiming we had done work that we absolutely had not done and demanding we pay her for damages we did not cause. This was beyond unreasonable. This was fraud. I called my lawyer immediately. His name is David Patterson, and he has handled my business legal stuff since I started the company. I scanned the letter and emailed it to him, then called to explain the whole situation from the beginning. Walter, this is textbook attempted theft of services combined with a fraudulent claim. She is trying to create a paper trail that says you did work, probably so she can either get you to admit you did it and argue it should be free, or to set up some kind of insurance claim. What should I do? First, do not respond to her directly. I will draft a response from this office laying out the facts and making it clear that your company did not perform any work on her property. Second, pull your GPS logs and employee time sheets for the day she claims you were there. We need to document where your trucks actually were. Third, I want you to file a police report about the fraudulent claim. A police report. Is that not a bit much? Walter, she is putting false claims in writing and demanding money. That is fraud. You need to protect yourself and your business. If she is willing to do this, who knows what else she might try? He was right. I went to the Buffalo Police Department's 5th Precinct that afternoon and filed a report. The officer who took my statement was a woman named Officer Patricia Gonzalez, and she took it very seriously once I laid out the timeline and showed her all the documentation. This woman is trying to set you up, she said, reviewing my GPS logs. These clearly show none of your vehicles were anywhere near her address on the day in question. You were doing a commercial property in Cheektowaga all day. That is what I am saying. I have 3 witnesses, my employees, who were with the trucks all day. We were never in Lakeside Meadows except to do the common areas early that morning, which is about 2 miles from her house. I am going to document all of this. I doubt the DA will pursue criminal charges just based on this letter, but having this report on file protects you if she escalates. It also gives you evidence if you need to pursue a civil case. My lawyer mentioned that. He thinks I should consider suing her. Officer Gonzalez looked up from her notepad. Honestly, I think you should. People like this keep doing this stuff because no one ever holds them accountable. She is trying to defraud you and damage your business reputation. That is not okay. I left the police station feeling somewhat better, at least knowing I had official documentation of what was really happening. David sent the response letter to Brenda that same day, clearly stating that we had not performed any work on her property, and that her claims were false and potentially fraudulent. He also included a copy of the GPS logs and a statement that any further false claims would result in legal action. Wednesday, I got a call from Linda Chen again. She sounded tired. Walter, I am so sorry to bother you with this. The HOA board had an emergency meeting last night because Brenda has been absolutely relentless about this issue. She is claiming you are harassing her and that your lawyer's letter was threatening. She wants the HOA to terminate our contract with you. You have got to be kidding me. I wish I was. The good news is that the rest of the board thinks she has lost her mind. We voted 5-1 to keep the contract in place and to formally reprimand her for misusing HOA letterhead for personal disputes. But she is making things very difficult. She has been emailing the entire neighborhood, posting on the community Facebook page, and apparently she is planning to picket your business. Picket my business. What is this, 1975? I know it sounds absurd, but she is dead serious. I wanted to give you a heads up in case she actually shows up. She did. That Saturday morning, Brenda Morrison appeared outside my office with a homemade sign that said, "Rutherford Snow Services defrauds customers," and started walking back and forth on the sidewalk. It would have been funny if it was not so damaging to my business. I called Officer Gonzalez, who sent a patrol car. The officers told Brenda she was allowed to protest on public property, but could not block access to the business or harass customers. She stayed for about 3 hours until the temperature dropped below freezing, and she apparently decided her point was made. The local news actually picked up the story. A reporter from WGRZ, one of the Buffalo stations, called me for a comment. I declined to talk about the specifics because David advised against it, but I did provide a statement saying that the claims against my company were false, and that we had documentation proving we had never serviced the property in question. The reporter, bless her heart, did her homework. She pulled public records, talked to other HOA board members, and actually reviewed the GPS data I provided. Her story, which aired that Tuesday, basically vindicated me completely. She interviewed Linda Chen, who confirmed the contract did not cover individual properties and that Brenda had been acting outside her authority. They even showed footage of Brenda's protest and interviewed a couple of my long-term clients who vouched for my company's integrity. Brenda did not take that well. She filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, claiming we had performed unwanted work and damaged her property. The BBB contacted me for a response, and I provided all the same documentation, GPS logs, employee statements, everything. They closed the complaint in my favor within a week, noting that there was no evidence any work had been performed, but the damage was done. I had 3 clients cancel their contracts, saying they did not want to be involved in drama. My Google reviews got bombed with fake 1-star reviews, all posted within a 24-hour period, all claiming similar stories about unwanted work and overcharging. Google eventually removed them, but it took weeks. I was spending hours dealing with this situation when I should have been running my business. That is when David called me with an idea. "Walter, I have been thinking about this. Brenda has made specific, false claims in writing. She has defamed your business publicly. She has cost you actual money in lost contracts and time spent dealing with this. You have grounds for a civil suit. For what? She has not actually done anything illegal enough to get arrested. She has committed attempted theft of services. She tried to get you to do work without paying by claiming it was covered under a contract she knew did not include that work. She has also arguably committed fraud by claiming you did work that you did not do and demanding payment for false damages. And she has definitely defamed your business. You could sue for the actual damages you have suffered, plus potentially punitive damages. How much are we talking about? Well, let us calculate it. You lost 3 contracts. What was the annual value of those? I pulled up my records. Total for all 3 would have been about $8,000 for the season. And how much time have you personally spent dealing with this situation? Administrative time, phone calls, meetings, documenting everything. I thought about it. Easily 40 hours, probably more. At least 40 hours. What is your hourly rate when you are working in the field? I usually calculate my owner time at $75 an hour for business purposes. So that is $3,000 in lost time. Plus the cost of having me deal with this, which is probably another $1,000 or so in legal fees so far. You are looking at real damages of over $12,000. But for small claims court in New York, the limit is $5,000 for commercial claims. We could file in small claims for $5,000, or we could file in regular civil court for the full amount, but that would be more expensive and time-consuming. I thought about it. $5,000 would cover my actual hard costs and legal fees with a little left over. More importantly, it would send a message that you cannot just make up lies about a business without consequences. Let us do small claims. I do not want to drag this out forever, and honestly, I just want her to face some kind of consequence for what she has done. David filed the paperwork the next day. We were suing Brenda Morrison personally for $4,000. We broke it down as $2,000 for the 3 lost contracts, which was a conservative estimate of the actual revenue loss. $1,500 for my time spent dealing with the situation, and $500 for legal fees. We kept it under $5,000 to avoid any jurisdictional issues and make it a clean case. Brenda was served with the lawsuit a week later. According to Linda Chen, who called me right after she heard, Brenda absolutely lost it. She showed up at Linda's house, ranting about how I was the one harassing her, and how she was going to countersue for 10 times as much. Linda, to her credit, told Brenda that the HOA would not be supporting her in any legal actions, and that she needed to deal with this on her own since it was a personal matter. The court date was set for March 15th, about 6 weeks away. David helped me prepare by organizing all my documentation into a clear timeline with supporting evidence for each claim. We had GPS logs, employee timesheets, the original HOA contract, emails from Linda Chen, the police report, the BBB complaint and resolution, screenshots of the fake Google reviews before they were removed, and statements from the 3 clients who had canceled their contracts explaining why. Brenda apparently hired a lawyer, some guy named Richard Stevens who had a reputation for taking questionable cases. David knew him and said he was decent in a courtroom but often worked with difficult clients because he needed the money. About 2 weeks before the court date, Richard called David directly. "Look, my client is insistent that she is right, but between you and me, I have seen your evidence and she does not have a case. She is claiming your client did work, but she has literally zero evidence that any of his trucks were on her property. No photos, no witnesses, nothing, just her word. And your GPS logs clearly show the trucks were somewhere else. So what are you proposing?" David asked. "Is your client willing to settle? Maybe she pays $1,000, everyone moves on." David put him on hold and called me. I was in the middle of clearing a driveway in Williamsville, but I took the call. "Absolutely not," I said. "She has put me through hell for 2 months. She tried to defraud me, she lied about me publicly, and she cost me actual money. I am not settling for $1,000. If she wants to settle, it needs to be for the full $4,000, plus she needs to sign something saying she will not make any further false claims about my company." David relayed that to Richard, who said he would talk to his client. He called back an hour later and said Brenda refused. She was convinced she would win in court. The day of the hearing arrived. Small Claims Court in Buffalo is held at the Erie County Court building downtown, a big imposing stone structure that always makes me a little nervous even when I am not in trouble. David and I arrived early and set up in one of the conference rooms they let people use to prepare. Brenda showed up with Richard about 10 minutes before the hearing was scheduled to start. She was wearing what I can only describe as a courtroom costume. A conservative navy blue suit, pearls, her hair styled perfectly, and a briefcase that looked like it had never been used before. She glared at me when she walked past, but did not say anything. The judge was a woman named Judge Margaret Foster, and according to David, she was known for being no-nonsense and not tolerating any foolishness in her courtroom. That seemed like a good thing for us. We were called up, and David presented our case first. He walked through the timeline clearly and methodically, introducing each piece of evidence as he went. The GPS logs showing we were not at Brenda's property on the day in question. The employee statements confirming the same. The original HOA contract clearly outlining what was and was not covered. The emails from Linda Chen confirming the HOA's understanding of the contract. The police report documenting the fraudulent claim. The BBB complaint and resolution. The statements from lost clients. Screenshots of the fake reviews. Judge Foster reviewed each document carefully, occasionally asking clarifying questions. She seemed particularly interested in the GPS logs. Mr. Rutherford, can you explain how these GPS systems work? How reliable are they? I stood up. Yes, Your Honor. All my trucks have commercial GPS tracking units installed. They log the truck's location every 60 seconds and store that data on a secure server. It is the same system used by lots of commercial fleet operators. The system cannot be tampered with or edited after the fact. The logs I provided show every location each of my 3 trucks visited on January 19th, the day Mrs. Morrison claims we were at her property. And according to these logs, none of your trucks were within 2 miles of her address that entire day. That is correct, Your Honor. We were at a commercial property in Cheektowaga from 7 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. Then we did the common areas of Lakeside Meadows, which are about 2 miles from Mrs. Morrison's house. And then we went to another residential area in Amherst. We were never on her street or anywhere near her specific property. Judge Foster nodded and turned to Brenda. Mrs. Morrison, it is your turn to present your case. Brenda stood up, and Richard tried to stand with her, but she waved him off. That should have been my first clue that this was about to go sideways. Your Honor, this man's company came to my property without my permission and did work that I did not authorize. They damaged my landscaping and then tried to charge me hundreds of dollars for work I never asked for. When I refused to pay, he started harassing me, sending threatening letters, and now he is trying to sue me. This is outrageous. Judge Foster looked at her with a neutral expression. Do you have any evidence that Mr. Rutherford's company was at your property on the date in question? I saw the truck. It was red just like his trucks. Did you take any photographs? No, I did not think I needed to. It was his company. Do you have any witnesses who saw the truck? My neighbor Janet saw it. Judge Foster looked at the case file. I do not see any witness statements from a Janet. Did you bring her with you today? No, she could not make it, but she saw it. Mrs. Morrison, without photographs or witness testimony, and with Mr. Rutherford presenting GPS evidence that his trucks were not at your location, I am having difficulty understanding how you can prove your claim. Brenda's face was getting red. The GPS system must be wrong, or he tampered with it. He obviously deleted the records of being at my house. Judge Foster's expression hardened slightly. Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Rutherford provided testimony that the GPS system cannot be edited after the fact. Do you have any evidence that the system was tampered with or that the data is inaccurate? It has to be inaccurate because I saw the truck. This was not going well for Brenda, and I could see Richard literally putting his head in his hands. Judge Foster looked through the documents again. Mrs. Morrison, I also see here that you sent Mr. Rutherford a letter demanding $1,000 for damage to your property, but you are testifying that you did not want the work done. Why would you demand payment for damages if the work was not done in the first place? Brenda froze. She had clearly not thought about how those two claims contradicted each other. Well, there was damage, so he should pay for it. But according to your letter, the damage was caused by the work his company did. But Mr. Rutherford has presented clear evidence his company was never at your property. So either the work happened and you should have evidence of it, or it did not happen and there are no damages. You cannot have it both ways. Your Honor, if I may, Richard finally stood up, probably realizing his client was destroying her own case. Mrs. Morrison may have been mistaken about which company performed the work. Perhaps a different snow removal company was at her property. Judge Foster nodded. That is possible, Mrs. Morrison. Is it possible you saw a different company's truck and mistook it for Mr. Rutherford's? Brenda looked like she was about to explode. No, it was his company. I know it was. Based on what evidence? Judge Foster's patience was clearly wearing thin. Because they have a contract with the HOA. They are the ones who should be doing my property. And there it was. The real issue came tumbling out. Judge Foster held up the HOA contract. Mrs. Morrison, I have reviewed the contract between Mr. Rutherford's company and the Lakeside Meadows HOA. It very clearly specifies that only common areas are covered. Individual properties are not included. Did you read this contract? Yes, but as HOA president, I believe the contract should cover all properties in the development. What you believe the contract should say is irrelevant. What matters is what it actually says, and it very clearly does not cover your personal property. Brenda was spiraling now. This is ridiculous. He is lying. His company was there, they did a terrible job, and now he is trying to extort more money from me. He should be the one on trial here. Judge Foster's expression went from patient to severe. Mrs. Morrison, I want to be very clear with you. Making false claims in legal proceedings is a serious matter. You have accused Mr. Rutherford of performing work without evidence. You have demanded payment for damages without proof those damages exist or that his company caused them. And now, you are accusing him of lying under oath without any evidence to support that accusation. Do you understand how serious this is? Richard grabbed Brenda's arm and pulled her back into her seat. Your Honor, can I have a moment to confer with my client? Make it quick. Richard and Brenda had a heated, whispered conversation. I could not hear exactly what they were saying, but I caught phrases like no evidence and drop it now and going to lose badly. After about 2 minutes, Richard stood up. Your Honor, after conferring with my client, we would like to request a continuance to gather additional evidence. Denied. Mrs. Morrison has had weeks to gather evidence. The fact that she has none is not grounds for a continuance. Do you have anything else to present? No, Your Honor. Then I am ready to rule. Judge Foster looked at both of us. Based on the evidence presented, it is clear that Mr. Rutherford's company did not perform any work at Mrs. Morrison's property on January 19th or any other date. The GPS evidence is convincing and has not been contradicted with any credible evidence. Mrs. Morrison's claim that she saw one of his trucks is uncorroborated and is contradicted by objective data. Furthermore, Mrs. Morrison's letter demanding payment for damages appears to be an attempt to obtain money through false claims, which is fraud. I find in favor of the plaintiff, Walter Rutherford. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. As to damages, Mr. Rutherford has presented evidence of 3 lost contracts, documented time spent dealing with this matter, and legal fees. The lost contracts alone represent a significant business impact. However, I need to calculate damages based on what has actually been lost, not potential future revenue. Mr. Rutherford, you stated the 3 contracts were worth $8,000 for the full season. How much of the season was remaining when they were canceled? David stood. Your Honor, the contracts were canceled in late January, and the snow season in Buffalo typically runs through March, sometimes into April. That represents approximately half the season. So the actual lost revenue would be approximately $4,000, and you spent 40 hours dealing with this matter? Yes, Your Honor. At a rate of $75 per hour, that would be $3,000. However, I am going to limit the time damages to what I consider reasonable for this type of dispute, which would be approximately 20 hours, or $1,500. Adding legal fees of $500, the total comes to $6,000 in damages. However, since the small claims limit for commercial disputes is $5,000, I am capping the judgment at $5,000. She looked at Brenda. Mrs. Morrison, you are ordered to pay Walter Rutherford $5,000 in damages within 30 days. Furthermore, I am ordering you to cease and desist from making any further false claims about Mr. Rutherford or his company. If you violate this order, you will be subject to contempt charges. Do you understand? Brenda was staring at the table, her face bright red. Richard nudged her. Yes, she said quietly. I am sorry, I did not hear you. Yes, Your Honor. Good. This matter is concluded. We walked out of the courtroom and I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. David was grinning. That went even better than I expected. She completely fell apart on the stand. You think she will actually pay? She has to. If she does not pay within 30 days, we can start garnishment proceedings. Trust me, she will pay. We walked outside into the cold March air. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone to call my wife, Jessica, and let her know how it went. She had been supportive through this whole nightmare, listening to me vent and encouraging me to stand up for myself and my business. Hey, honey, we won. $5,000. Oh, thank God. I am so proud of you for standing up to her. Are you heading back to work? Yeah, I have a full afternoon ahead of me. Love you. Love you too. Over the next few days, word spread through Lakeside Meadows about the court judgment. Linda Chen called to congratulate me and let me know that the HOA board had voted to remove Brenda as president. Apparently, the other board members had been looking for a reason to oust her for a while, and her behavior in this situation was the final straw. She was allowed to remain on the board as a regular member, but someone else would be taking over as president. 2 of the 3 clients who had canceled their contracts called to apologize and ask if they could reinstate their service. I agreed, with the understanding that their seasonal rate would reflect the partial season remaining. The 3rd client had already hired another company, which was fine. No hard feelings. The fake Google reviews never came back, and my actual clients started leaving positive reviews talking about how I had been vindicated in court and what a professional operation we ran. My rating actually went up from where it had been before all this started. True to Judge Foster's ruling, I received a check from Brenda Morrison for $5,000 exactly 28 days after the judgment. It arrived via certified mail with no note, no apology, nothing. Just a check. I deposited it and considered the matter closed. Except it was not quite closed. About a week after I received the check, Officer Gonzalez called me. Walter, I wanted to give you a heads up about something. The DA's office reviewed the police report you filed and the outcome of your civil case. They are considering filing criminal charges against Brenda Morrison for attempted theft of services and fraud. Wait, really? I thought you said they probably would not pursue it. That was before she lost so spectacularly in civil court. The fact that a judge found her claims to be false and potentially fraudulent gives the DA's office a lot more to work with. They are still deciding, but I wanted you to know it is a possibility. You might be called as a witness if they move forward. What would the charges be? Probably a misdemeanor charge of attempted theft of services and possibly making false written statements. Nothing that would put her in prison, but she could face fines and probation. It would also mean a criminal record. Wow, I just wanted her to stop lying about me and my company. I was not trying to get her arrested. I understand, but the DA has to consider whether someone who does this to one business will do it to others. Sometimes prosecution is about protecting future potential victims as much as punishing the current crime. I thought about it. Part of me felt bad. Despite everything Brenda had put me through, the idea of her getting arrested seemed extreme. But Officer Gonzalez had a point. If she was willing to do all this over snow removal, what would she try with other contractors or businesses? If they decide to pursue charges, I will cooperate. But it is not something I am pushing for. That is fair. I will let them know. Take care, Walter. Spring came to Buffalo, which meant the end of snow season and the beginning of cleanup and equipment maintenance. My crews spent April servicing all our plows, doing oil changes on the trucks, and catching up on regular landscaping work for our warm weather clients. Business was good. The drama with Brenda had actually brought me some publicity, and I picked up several new clients who had heard about the case and liked that I was willing to stand up for my business. In early May, I got a call from a prosecutor named Assistant District Attorney Michael Torres. He introduced himself and explained that the DA's office had decided to file charges against Brenda Morrison. Mr. Rutherford, I want to be clear about what we are doing and why. Mrs. Morrison's behavior fits a pattern we have seen before. People in positions of minor authority, like HOA presidents, sometimes believe they can abuse that authority to get free services or preferential treatment. When someone pushes back, they double down with false claims and aggressive tactics. We are filing charges for attempted theft of services and filing a false report. These are both misdemeanors, but we think it is important to hold her accountable. What do you need from me? You will need to testify at the hearing. It should be fairly straightforward since you have already testified in civil court. Just tell the truth about what happened. The evidence is solid, so I do not anticipate this being a difficult case. The hearing was scheduled for June. Brenda had apparently hired a different lawyer for the criminal case, a woman named Patricia Donnelly who specialized in criminal defense. According to David, who kept tabs on the case for me, Patricia was trying to work out a plea deal to avoid trial. In mid-June, Ada Torres called to let me know they had reached a plea agreement. Brenda would plead guilty to attempted theft of services, the filing a false report charge would be dropped, and she would receive 1 year of probation plus a $1,500 fine. She would also be required to complete a class on business ethics and community responsibility. It is not a harsh punishment, but it accomplishes what we need. She will have a criminal record, which will make it harder for her to pull something like this again. And the ethics class, honestly, is probably the most important part. She needs to understand that being HOA president does not give her the right to bully people or make up rules. I appreciate you taking this seriously. I know it is just a small case in the grand scheme of things. Small cases matter, Mr. Rutherford, maybe even more than the big ones sometimes. This woman tried to hurt your business because you would not give her free work. That is not okay, and it is our job to say that clearly. The plea was entered in late June, and that was finally, truly, the end of it. Brenda Morrison had gone from HOA president to convicted criminal, had paid me $5,000, lost her leadership position, and was now on probation. All because she refused to pay $250 for snow removal. I ran into Linda Chen at the grocery store in July. We chatted for a few minutes, and she caught me up on the HOA drama. Things have been so much calmer since Brenda stepped down as president. Well, since she was forced to step down. The new president is a guy named Tom Harrison, and he is great, very reasonable, actually listens to people. We have been reviewing all the HOA policies and making sure everything is clear and documented so there is no room for this kind of interpretation issue again. That is good to hear. How is Brenda doing? Linda made a face. She is keeping a low profile. I think the probation and the criminal record really shook her. She resigned from the board entirely last month. Honestly, I think it is for the best. She was always so confrontational about everything. Well, I hope she learned something from all this. Me too. And Walter, I want to apologize again for not shutting this down sooner. As board members, we should have stepped in harder when she first started making demands outside the contract scope. You did what you could. I do not blame the board. This was all Brenda. We said our goodbyes and went our separate ways. Driving home, I thought about the whole saga. It had been exhausting and frustrating and expensive, even with the $5,000 judgment. But in the end, I was glad I had stood my ground. Too many contractors get pushed around by people like Brenda because it is easier to just give in than to fight back. But giving in does not solve anything. It just teaches bullies that their tactics work. My business survived and actually thrived. The next winter was our best season yet, with 72 residential contracts and several new commercial clients. I hired 2 more employees and bought a 4th truck. When people asked how I built such a successful business, I would tell them it was about quality work and fair prices, but also about standing up for yourself and not letting people take advantage of you. I never saw Brenda Morrison again, though I would occasionally drive through Lakeside Meadows when servicing the HOA common areas. Her house always had a neatly cleared driveway in the winter, so she apparently found someone else to do her snow removal. I hoped she was paying them fairly for their work. Looking back, the whole situation taught me valuable lessons about documentation, standing your ground, and not being afraid of the legal system when you are in the right. It also taught me that people in small positions of power will sometimes abuse that power in ridiculous ways, and that the only way to stop that behavior is to call it out and hold them accountable. Every year now, when the first big snow hits Buffalo, I think about that Monday morning phone call from Brenda Morrison demanding I clear her walkway immediately. I think about how differently things could have gone if I had just given in and done the work for free to avoid conflict. But I did not give in. I stood my ground, documented everything, took her to court, and won. $4,000 might not sound like a lot of money to some people, but to me it represented something much more important than cash. It represented a small business owner standing up to a bully and winning. It represented the principle that your time and expertise have value, and no one has the right to demand your services for free, no matter what position they hold in their little corner of the world. And honestly, that victory was worth way more than $4,000. The story could have ended there, but there was one more interesting development. About a year after the criminal case concluded, I received a letter from an attorney representing the Lakeside Meadows HOA. For a moment, my heart sank, thinking this was somehow starting again. But when I opened it and read the contents, I was pleasantly surprised. The letter explained that the HOA board had conducted a full audit of financial records during Brenda's time as president. They discovered several instances of what appeared to be misuse of HOA funds for personal expenses. The board was in the process of pursuing legal action to recover those funds, and they wanted to know if I had any information that might be relevant to their case. Specifically, they wanted to know if Brenda had ever claimed to the HOA that my company had performed work that was not actually done. I called Linda Chen to get more details. She explained that they had found multiple payments to contractors for work that apparently was never performed, or that was performed on Brenda's personal property but billed to the HOA. My situation had apparently been just the tip of the iceberg. Walter, you standing up to her actually prompted us to dig deeper into the finances. We realized that if she was trying to scam you, she might have been scamming the HOA too. And we were right. We are talking about potentially $20,000 in improper expenses over 3 years. That is crazy. What happens now? We are suing her for restitution. It is a civil suit, but we have also reported it to the DA's office. Depending on what they find, she might face additional criminal charges. Financial fraud against an HOA is taken pretty seriously, especially when it involves that much money. I provided the board with copies of all my documentation, including the records of our phone conversations and the letter she had sent me on HOA letterhead. David helped me prepare a formal statement outlining everything that had happened, which the HOA's attorney could use in their case. That case took almost a year to wind through the courts, but eventually, Brenda was ordered to pay back $18,000 to the HOA. She also faced additional criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement, though I never learned the full outcome of those charges. By that point, I had moved on and was focused on running my business. The whole experience did lead to one positive change in my business practices. I started being much more careful about contracts, making sure everything was spelled out in excruciating detail. I also began requiring deposits for all new clients and implementing a policy that any requests outside the scope of a contract had to be approved in writing with payment terms clearly outlined before any work was done. It was more paperwork, but it protected both me and my clients from misunderstandings and disputes. I also started keeping even more detailed records of everything: GPS logs, time sheets, photographs of completed work, and customer communications. In the digital age, documentation is easy and cheap, and it can save you when someone tries to claim something that never happened. My employees appreciated the new systems too. They felt more protected knowing that every job was properly documented, and that if a customer ever tried to pull something like Brenda did, we would have clear evidence to defend ourselves. It created a culture of professionalism and accountability that made everyone take pride in their work. One unexpected benefit of the whole situation was that other small business owners in Buffalo started reaching out to me for advice when they had trouble with customers. I became something of an informal expert on handling difficult clients and HOA disputes. I even gave a talk at the local Chamber of Commerce about protecting your business from fraud and abuse, which was well attended and apparently pretty helpful to people. The reality is that small business owners face these kinds of challenges all the time. People try to get free work, dispute legitimate charges, demand services outside the scope of contracts, and then get angry when you hold them to the actual agreement. Most of the time, contractors and service providers just eat the cost because fighting back seems too expensive or time-consuming. But that approach just perpetuates the problem. What I learned from dealing with Brenda Morrison is that sometimes you have to invest time and money in standing up for yourself, even when it feels like more trouble than it is worth in the moment. Because if you do not, people like her will keep doing the same thing to you and to other businesses. And eventually, those small losses and concessions add up to real damage to your bottom line and your reputation. The $4,000 I won in court did not fully compensate me for all the time and stress and business impact I suffered. But winning that case sent a message to everyone who heard about it. Rutherford Snow Services stands behind its work, honors its contracts, and will not be bullied or defrauded. That reputation is worth far more than any dollar amount. These days, when I hire new employees, I tell them about the Brenda Morrison situation during their training. Not to scare them, but to help them understand the importance of documentation, clear communication, and standing firm on our policies. I want them to know that if a customer ever tries to push them around or demand free work, the company will back them up. We do not have to accept abuse or dishonesty from anyone, no matter who they are or what position they hold. I also tell the story to new clients in a sanitized version when explaining our contract terms and policies. I want them to understand why we are so careful about documentation and why we require everything in writing. Most clients appreciate that level of professionalism. The ones who push back or want everything done on a handshake are often the ones who will cause problems later anyway. Buffalo winters keep rolling around, and every year brings new storms, new challenges, and new clients. But I feel much more confident now in my ability to handle whatever comes my way. I know how to protect myself and my business. I know when to compromise and when to stand firm. And I know that the legal system, while imperfect and sometimes slow, does work when you have the truth and evidence on your side. Brenda Morrison probably did not intend to teach me all these valuable lessons when she called demanding I clear her walkway that January morning. But in trying to take advantage of me and my company, she inadvertently made me a better business owner, more knowledgeable about my rights, more diligent about documentation, and more confident about standing up to bullies. So in a strange way, I am almost grateful for the experience. Almost. I still would have preferred to avoid the whole mess. But since I could not avoid it, I am glad I handled it the way I did. I am glad I did not just give in to make her go away. I am glad I documented everything and took her to court, and I am especially glad that I won. That $5,000 check hanging framed in my office serves as a daily reminder that doing the right thing, even when it is hard, pays off in the end. It reminds me that small business owners deserve respect and fair treatment. And it reminds me that no one, not even an HOA president with an inflated sense of authority, has the right to demand your time and labor for free. The snow will keep falling in Buffalo, and I will keep clearing it. But now I do it with the confidence that comes from knowing I can handle whatever challenges come my way, whether those challenges are meteorological or human. And that confidence, earned through standing up to someone who tried to take advantage of me, is something no amount of money could buy. So here is to standing your ground, documenting everything, and not letting bullies win. Here is to small claims court, clear contracts and GPS logs. And here is to every small business owner who has ever been pushed around by someone who thought their position gave them the right to free services. You deserve better. Stand up for yourself. You might be surprised what you can accomplish when you refuse to back down. As I sit here now, a few years removed from the whole situation, I can reflect on it with some perspective. The business has continued to grow. We now have 6 trucks and 15 employees. We have expanded into landscaping and general property maintenance, not just snow removal. The company that almost got derailed by one vindictive HOA president has become one of the most respected property services companies in the Buffalo area. And none of that would have happened if I had let Brenda Morrison walk all over me, because giving in to her would have set a precedent. Word would have spread that Rutherford Snow Services could be bullied into doing free work. Other people would have tried the same tactics. My margins would have shrunk, my reputation would have suffered, and I probably would have ended up going out of business within a few years, crushed under the weight of entitled clients demanding more and more for less and less. Instead, by standing firm, by documenting everything, and by taking the fight to court, I established that my company was professional, honest, and not to be trifled with. That reputation attracted quality clients who respected our work and paid their bills on time. It attracted quality employees who wanted to work for a company with integrity. And it gave me the confidence to keep growing and taking on new challenges. The story of Karen, who demanded I clear her walkway, who I sued for attempted theft of services, and from whom I won $4,000, is more than just a story about a difficult customer. It is a story about standing up for yourself and your business. It is about the importance of clear contracts and documentation. It is about the value of taking the time to do things right, even when it would be easier to cut corners. And it is about the fact that sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do. But doing it anyway is what separates successful businesses from failed ones. I never saw Brenda Morrison again after that day in court, but I heard through the grapevine that she eventually sold her house in Lakeside Meadows and moved to somewhere in Florida. I hope she learned something from our encounter. I hope she treats contractors and service providers better now. But honestly, whether she changed or not is not my concern. I did what I needed to do to protect myself and my business, and that is what matters. Every business owner will face their own version of Brenda Morrison at some point. Someone who demands more than they are owed, who tries to manipulate or intimidate you into giving them free services, who threatens you with bad reviews or legal action if you do not bend to their will. When that happens, remember that you have options. You do not have to give in. Document everything. Know your contracts. Stand your ground. And if necessary, take them to court. Because at the end of the day, your business is your livelihood. It is how you support yourself and your family. It is the product of years of hard work and investment. And no one, no matter who they are or what title they hold, has the right to take that from you through deception, intimidation, or fraud. Stand up for yourself. The system is not perfect, but it does work when you have the truth on your side. That is the real lesson from this whole experience. Not just that I won $4,000 in court, though that was satisfying. The real lesson is that integrity matters, documentation matters, and standing up for yourself matters. Those principles have served me well in the years since, and they will continue to serve me well in the years to come. And I hope that by sharing this story, they will serve other business owners well too. The snow keeps falling in Buffalo, and life keeps moving forward. But I will never forget that January morning when Brenda Morrison called demanding I clear her walkway. Never forget the months of harassment that followed. And never forget the satisfaction of walking out of that courtroom with a judgment in my favor. It was a hard-won victory, but it was worth every minute of effort and every dollar spent on legal fees, because in the end, it was not really about the money. It was about the principle. And principles, I have learned, are worth fighting for.